Do you want bigger legs? Yes, of course you do. That's why we're here today talking about the king of all leg builders, the squat. In particular, we're going to be talking about the exact leg day routine that I used to get to the point of being able to squat 4 plates. And I know that's not any sort of real incredible achievement, but I've always considered myself to have a pretty average build. So for me, it took a long time and it took a lot of work. And I imagine if you're here, it's probably taking you a lot of work as well. And I think it is good, right? 315 is good. I think that's an incredible achievement. Hitting 405 for the first time on a squat, I think is also really, really cool. So if you're trying to hit that 405 mark on the squat, I think you're in the right place because I'm going to help you skip ahead, save some time, and learn from my mistakes that I've been making over the last 15 years. You can take my leg day and plug it right into your routine. Sorry to say there's not a bunch of science-based nonsense. Probably by the end of this video, you're going to say, well, it seems really basic and simple and easy to do with very regular, normal gym equipment. And, hate to say it, but yeah, it is. So that's exactly why we're going to talk about this leg day routine that I've been finely tuning and crafting to get me to this mark. So in this video, we're going to be talking about my leg workout. We're going to be talking about sets, reps, exercises, a little bit of execution and cues, and then I'm going to talk about nutrition. And at the very end, if you're interested, I have a couple lifts that you can kind of do to swap in, add some variation, some assisting lifts that I think are going to help. Maybe you can use them as finishers, whatever your heart desires. So the Brofessor is here. Class is in session. Please be seated to take your notes. Let's get this rolling. First off, we got to start my credentials, right? Who the heck am I? Who are you, Baldy? Who are you, the Baldy, to talk about leg days? So my biggest squat so far is a 425 for a double. And that was at my peak bulkness, which I was at about in these pictures. And kind of hard to tell, but in these pictures, my legs were at 20, just shy of 28 inches at this point. I was 220 pounds. We were getting some family photos done. And I was feeling good, feeling really good, feeling strong. It was impossible to fit into any pants. I had to get like 38-inch waist pants, and they were just scrunched up at the waist, and just because my thighs were so meaty. And then that's my little baby right there. He's so funny. But yeah, you want to see some more credentials. Now, keep in mind, I'm 220 pounds, or not 200. I'm only 200 pounds right now, 6 weeks into the bulk, okay? So you didn't think I was going to take off a piece. Of course I got to take off a piece of clothing. Look. Don't worry. I got shorts on, okay? So we're going over the credentials. Here's what we got. Okay. So now that we got that out of the way, and don't wear their shorts, okay? It's not my underwear. Those are just shorts that I had on under my pants. I think it's important to not only look at what people are doing right now, but you want to look at how somebody got from point A to point B. And this is how I got from point A to point B, which is where you want to be. So the first exercise that I always do to start off my leg days is leg curls. And so I would do 3 sets of these. And you're probably thinking, okay, why are we doing these first? Doing leg curls first because I think that it's a great way to just get the hamstrings warmed up and just get the whole posterior chain firing. We don't want to just jump right into some crazy weights. We want to get everything hot and warm and just to prevent injuries and get a nice pump on the hamstrings. So for these, I don't like to go crazy on the reps, crazy high with the weight. I just like to keep it nice, 16 reps, and then maybe I'll do like a high first set just to make sure we're feeling good after a couple warm-ups, and then I'll do like a 12 rep and then another 12 rep. So that's why I'm just trying to get all the posterior chain warmed up and really focusing on fully straightening the leg here and then fully bringing that leg up and curling it and flexing the whole posterior chain, contracting at the top. And for these, I like to do a nice 2-minute rest. It's typically the standard I like to use is a good 2-minute rest. And we're going to talk a little bit more about rest times a little bit later in the video. So the next exercise that I like to do is leg extensions. And I like to do these again for 3 working sets. And turning up the intensity slightly when I'm doing this leg extensions, really focusing on decent form, except for like the last 5-ish reps. I'll get a little nasty, but starting off the set really clean, full on good. Really want to focus on the deep stretch where your knee is fully bent as much as your machine can allow. And then when you get to the top of the leg extension, I also think it's really important to, I used to do this for a while where you just kind of straighten out your legs and then let the weight fall down. I think it's really important to not only straighten your legs, but really focus on flexing your quad. I think that piece right there is what really started to get me with the separation, of all my different quad muscles where I could see everything. I really truly thought it was that bit of contracting on the leg extension machine. So you want to do 2-minute rest times and focusing on stretch, contraction, getting good reps. I like to do the 16, 12, 8. Now we're slightly turning up the intensity so that last set we're doing is kind of pushing your boundaries a little bit and getting out of your comfortability zone from a strength perspective. Okay, so now we got through the first 2 workouts. Now we're here, okay? The meat and potatoes, the squat. We are going over to the squat rack, and it's game time, right? It is on. And I would do a couple warm-up sets, so we're not just jumping straight into working sets. I'll probably do a couple warm-up sets of 10 or so, a plate and then 2 plates, just to get things going, grease the groove. And I have a very, different rep scheme that I don't see a ton of people doing here that I thought was really effective for me, which was like my first set was like a 16, right? I'm trying to hit failure somewhere in the 16 range. And when I say hitting failure on the squats, I think that that's like, it's kind of subjective with squats. I think squats and kind of leg exercises in general are really unique exercises where let's say like think about a bench press, for example. If you put a weight on there where you can only do 10 reps and at the end, you do 10 reps and somebody puts a gun to your head and says, you need to do one more rep or, going to kill you or going to SHOOT you to keep it family friendly. I'm going to pull the what and there's just, if you've already done your 10 rep max on your bench, there's just, you hit that wall, you're just not going to, you can't just squeeze out another rep, right? It's just not going to happen physically. But it seems like on the squats, pretty much a lot of the times you always have more in the tank. And it's just like squats is just, it's like, how much do you hate yourself? Like, how much do you really, how deep are you in it, right? Whatever you think you can do for squats for 10, you can probably do for 20 and maybe even 21. Squats is totally a game of like, it's about digging deep mentally and how far you want to go into that uncomfortability zone. Okay, they're just a completely different monster. So that being said, the hitting failure close to, I'm going to say that people in general, people rarely hit failure on squats. What you want to hit for is a level of very high intensity that you feel like is probably close to failure on squats. Okay, that's what we're looking like. So I'm hitting a 16 rep, and then I'm hitting an 8 rep, and then I'm going to add even more weight and try to hit something that I can I can barely hit 3 reps on. Like I'm trying to go for a 3 or a 4. And then sometimes I would even do another final set of another 3, maybe, or a 2. Thing is, I think it's really, really important from a strength building perspective to really work in those low rep ranges, to get good at, like, working in low rep ranges is a skill, is a totally separate skill set. If you only done 3x10s or you only do 12 rep ranges, like working in a different rep range is something you have to learn how to do it effectively. So you want to be intentional about actually really pushing the weight and pushing your comfortability. So that's why I do that rep spread. And yes, big thing, mistakes I see a lot. Here's some common mistakes I see on the squat. People going way too far forward, bending too far forward, and putting a lot of shear tension on your low back. Right, so a lot of that low back pain is going to come from bending way too far forward. The way you can handle that is you can get a set of squat shoes to slightly elevate your heels. You can put some weight under your heels, or you may just, poor ankle mobility, or you may just be leaning too far forward, because you think with any amount of weight, there's like a range of finding your balance. You may just want to start trying to work your natural balance back and moving that weight backward and shifting your upper body to be more vertical. Another problem I see a lot is knees collapsing. So, you go real down and your knees kind of buckle in a little bit. One thing I think that's causing that is your feet being too parallel. So if your feet are buckling, like if your knees are buckling when you're trying to push up, angle your feet out just a little bit more. And that is going to help your knees want to naturally bend out, like kind of in and away from you, angle, and kind of have a more natural bend to it. And that should help to some degree reduce knee buckling. And then another big mistake I see is not going deep enough. And I think that there's probably a place for doing really heavy partial squats, like not going, I think, like I said, I think cheat reps are good. I think cheat reps absolutely have a place in certain times to like really work on a cheat rep, throw extra weight on there, do a partial just to get used to the feel of that extra weight. But you don't want I don't think you should have all your reps be cheat reps. Like every single rep you do on a squat should not be a cheat rep, or you're really just cheating yourself. Does that make sense? Sometimes you can cheat physics by doing cheat reps, but if you do them all the time, you're just cheating yourself. And the other thing to think about is that with big exercises like this, if you have not been doing them for years, and I mean years, I truly think it takes years and years. I mean, I've been doing squats for 15 years. I feel like I still learn pretty frequently. Like I'm still learning new things about squats, and still sometimes I'll just take a day and just try to like work on just my form. So the reason I'm saying that is because there's 2 layers here to your squats. There's the actual technical proficiency of performing the exercise correctly, and then there's the physical strength side of it. And in my opinion, I do not think you should really be pushing the physical strength side until you have the technical proficiency side down. So if you're kind of newer to squats, maybe keep your reps, anywhere from like the 12 to 20 range. If you're not like really, really good at doing squats, like good at doing a squat that looks, not perfect, but looks really good, you should not be pushing into the 4, 5, 6 rep range of levels of intensity. I think that is a little dangerous. So in my opinion, make sure your form's good first. And then once your form is good, then you know how to do a cheat rep properly. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And on squats, I like to increase my rest to 3 minutes. And just kind of touch on rest a little bit. in my opinion, here's how to tell if you're not resting enough. So if you do a particular exercise and then the next set you do, let's say you do a set, whatever, a minute after, and you feel like really what's stopping you from doing the next rep is like, you're just breathing super heavy and your heart's beating like crazy and like, you're sweating like crazy. And like, that's the limiting factor. Then it almost like your cardiovascular is the thing that you're working out. That means you probably didn't rest enough. You've rested long enough when the muscle that you're trying to work is actually what is the limiting factor, right? So you've rested long enough when the next set of squats you do, well, now your quads are the thing that's giving out, right? Or maybe it's your glutes for some people. So in my opinion, I think 3 minutes is a good place to start. Try with, mess around with that. If you're going for higher intensities, like in the 2 or to 1 rep range, it might be good to rest even longer than that, maybe even 4 or 5 minutes. Typically, I start with a 2-minute rest on basically everything. If it's a smaller move like, curls or extension, tricep extensions, or any sort of like a shoulder raise or anything like that, then I'll, drop like a minute and a half, maybe. And then if it's something bigger, like a squat or a deadlift, I'm usually resting for 3 minutes. So that's pretty much all I have to say about back squats. Last thing there's 2 more things I want to touch on. Okay, we're going to talk about nutrition, and then we're going to get into assisting lifts here. So nutrition is going to be super, super important. Okay, for years, went to the gym. You probably experienced this as well. Say, find some random big dude. Say, hey man, how do I get as big as you? They all say the same thing. You got to eat big, brother. You got to eat like a 220 pounder if you want to be a 220 pounder. You want to break that coveted 200 pound threshold so you can no longer be victim weight. Dude, you got to eat. A calorie surplus is going to be your best pathway to consistent gains. And just to kind of touch on that again, the concept of overtraining. So you hear people talk about overtraining a lot. I don't think overtraining is real. I don't think it's real. I don't think overtraining is real. See, the thing, there's like some crazy like Russians, Olympic lifting Russians that do, they'll like max out on their squat. I don't remember the name of it. Maybe it's Bulgarian something. I don't know. They'll max out on their lifts like every single day. Maybe that's all they'll do. So they'll kind of vary the volume a little bit to keep up with their recovery. But the recovery is key. And all of this fitness and bodybuilding and everything, it is truly a recovery game. Okay. And that's what took me way too long to realize is to, if you're doing a leg day, so a lot of people don't like it. You go to do your legs, and your legs are sore for like 7 days. I think it's because your recovery is not really good. And I'm saying that confidently because there was many, many years where my recovery was not where it needed to be. So I can confidently say that's probably the case with you, right? It's like, how late were you staying up? Especially the night after leg day. Did you stay up all night? How many meals did you eat? Did you eat a huge meal directly after doing legs? Probably not. How much protein did you get that day? Did you get 1 gram-ish per pound of lean body weight? Probably not. Okay, so we didn't sleep. We didn't eat enough. All right, so are you... Of course your legs are going to hurt. So for me, I don't buy into the whole overtraining thing. I've always been that way. I've always been like a bit of a psycho, even when I was back in the military, just doing like wild stuff, working out multiple times a day, on deployment or whatever. I just liked it. Okay. I think if you're having a problem not keeping up, your body not keeping up, I think you should focus on the recovery bit first. Look at nutrition, look at sleep, and then, look in those areas first before you start dialing back on your workout intensity or your workout volume. So anyway, whatever. I've said enough about that. You get it. You get it? You get it. Okay, so here's some accessory lifts I really like. First one, I'm kind of iffy about the seated leg press. Here's where I think the seated leg press helps. If you build up a strong seated leg press that really put a good amount of weight, I think that it will really help you drive out of the hole on the squats. As my opinion, I think that's where the leg press comes into play. So if that's kind of like your limiter, if you have a problem, like if you drop down in your squat and you just kind of you just stay there, maybe work on leg press a little bit, and that can help you really dig out of the hole. Other than that, I don't know. I don't think you need to do leg press if you're also doing squat as your main work, though. Elevated heel squat. So this is just putting some weights under your heels to kind of pick up on your heels. And doing this is going to help your body it's going to allow your torso to be a lot more upright. It's going to take a lot out of the glutes and put a lot more in the quads. So if you're somebody, when you do your squats, you feel it a lot in your glutes and you want to feel it more in your quads, maybe shift that around a little bit. Do some elevated heel work. It's going to do more. It's going to put less strain on your lower back and more strain on your quads. So I really like elevated heel squats quite a bit. And then you have your Smith machine squats. Again, this is going to allow you to do essentially a similar thing to what the elevated heel squats are doing, but you're still going to have a good amount of glute, but you're just allowing your body to be more upright. And hack squat would probably be on here, but I've never been at a gym that had a hack squat. So maybe I've only had poverty brokey gyms. I don't have like one of the big, fancy gyms you see on the internet. It's got some neighborhood YMCA, but it gets the job done. And then RDLs / stiff leg deadlifts, whatever you want to call them. I don't really think there's too much. I don't think there's a whole lot of point in that's not an RDL. That's a stiff leg deadlift or blah, blah, blah. Shut up. I don't care, right? It doesn't matter. Here's what matters when you're doing these. You get a lot of weight and you try to keep your knees as straight as possible. And what you just want to do is you want to get low and feel a lot of tension build up in the hamstrings. You want to bend over, get your hamstrings nice and tight, and then once your hamstrings are really, really tight, focus on flexing your hamstrings and your glutes to bring the weight forward. That's it. Okay? You don't need to get wrapped around the axle as to you're doing RDLs, or if somebody asks me, are you doing an RDL or are you doing a stiff leg deadlift? I don't know. I'm doing whatever you think I'm doing, okay? What I'm doing is something that gets my hamstrings on fire, right? Just torches my hamstrings. So the next day, lowering down onto the porcelain throne is a painful experience. Okay, that's what I'm doing. All right, that's all I got for you. Anyways, I hope that helps. Go ahead and drop this into your leg day. If you want to give it a try, seriously, give it at least 6 weeks to before you judge. And you have to give every workout program you try a little bit of time to get working, because you have to get some. You got to get used to it, right? It's just like anything else. You got to practice it and continue practicing and get better. Okay. So if you want to see anything else, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. And I'll see you dorks in the next one. Have a great day.